Okay. As we open our meeting, I would like to call on Rotarian Val to give the guiding principles for every Rotarian and to give to us the objects of Rotary. Val, are you with us for the object of Rotary?
Thank you. All protocol observed. The object of Rotary. The object of Rotary is to encourage infants as an opportunity for service. Second, high ethical standards in business and professions, the recognition of the worthiness of all useful occupations, and the dignifying of each Rotarian's occupation. Third, the application of the ideal of service in each Rotarian's personal, business, and community life. Fourth and lastly, the advancement of international understanding, goodwill, and peace through a world fellowship of business and professional persons united in the ideal of service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rotarian Val. I would now like to call on Past District Governor David to give the toast to the Republic of South Africa and all the diverse people.
Pardon, let me unmute.
Yes, please unmute, David.
Proposing a toast to South Africa. I think I am unmuted. Can you hear me? South Africa.
Yes.
We think of the diversity of her people and the richness that their cultures bring us. We acknowledge especially those who are working to bridge the divisions that exist between us, as this will bring prosperity to all. We all need each other. To the Republic of South Africa.
The Republic of South Africa. And I'd like to call on past President Cecilia to do the toast to Rotary, Club of Pretoria West and the Rotary world over. I don't know if Cecilia's on a board. Cecilia, are you with us? If not, please could I ask, well, I will do the toast then to the Rotary Club of Pretoria West, Rotary clubs in South Africa, and Rotary clubs worldwide. May we thrive and serve humanity. Toast to Rotary.
Rotary the world over.
Now, may I please ask District Governor Stella to introduce our guest speaker, the Honourable Minister, Angie Motshekga.
Thank you very much, President Maureen. Our fellow Rotarians from all over, welcome to our meeting. It really is our pleasure to have this evening the Honorable Minister of Basic Education, Ms. Angie Motshekga. She has graciously agreed to be our guest speaker tonight, and it was a pleasure meeting her in her offices yesterday. And to pin her with a Rotary pin and to make her an honorary Rotarian as she's wearing a Rotary scarf. It's a very short bio that the department gave. It looks like this is what you have approved for your department. I have never seen such a short bio for such a position before, but this is it. Ms. Angie Motshekga is currently serving as the Minister of Basic Education. She is a member of the ANC's National Executive Committee, and she served as president of the ANC Women's League. She holds a master's degree from WITS, a Bachelor of Educational Sciences from the same university, and a Bachelor of Arts in Education from the University of the North. She taught at Orlando High School from 1981 to 1983. She lectured at the Soweto College of Education from 1983 to 1985. And she lectured at Wits University from 1985 to 1994. She has served as director in the Office of the President from 1994 to 1997, and also served as MEC for Social Services and Education in Gauteng. From this bio, you see that we have a square peg or a round peg in a round hole, because it's a person well-versed in education who is dealing with basic education. I give you our Minister, Ms. Angie Motshekga. Thank you very much. Welcome, Minister.
No, thank you very much, Program Director, and let me really express my deepest sincere appreciation for the invitation, and feel quite humbled by the fact that I have these esteemed people inviting me to address them tonight. But thank you very much for the invitation. So, Program Director, let me acknowledge your district governor. So I already said our. It's an honorary member. Let me acknowledge the District Director, Dr. Stella Anyangwe, the Chair Satellite Club of Pretoria West, Dr. Val Alcantara, the Club President, Maureen Taylor, the Treasurer, Nong Sirude, the members and friends of Rotary, ladies and gentlemen. Program Director, as I said, it is for me indeed a great honor to be given this opportunity to address you in this evening. So members and friends of Rotary, we do meet today to discuss the challenges and opportunities in basic post-COVID-19 challenges. And I really want to thank the members of the Rotary for this invitation, because indeed, COVID-19 pandemic has disrupted schooling quite severely. Since we reopened after an extended mid-year recess, there's been a steady improvement in the recovery of lost curriculum time. Because if you recall, last year we closed for almost 3 months and phased in reopening in 2020, which really was not a full reopening, but it was really a phase in reopening. So District Governor, our research have thankfully begun to measure COVID-19 related learning losses in a local context by comparing how much children would have learned in 2020 as compared to their year before in 2019. We're also comparing now 2021 to 2020 and to 2019 to really have a clear sense of not only the topics that we would have missed, but basically what the learning losses are, because it's quite clear that the learning losses are far beyond the areas of learning that our children would have learned. And we'll explain why that is the case. But from our measurements, it indicates that between 50% and 75% of typical years worth of learning has been lost in 2020. And we're measuring how much we're losing in 2021, so that our recovery plans are informed by how much we need to claw back to be able to recover fully, if indeed we're to recover from COVID-19. We also had delays in the start of 2021 because of the second phase that hit the country in 2021, the beginning of the year. So we had to delay our reopening again with about 2 weeks. And we're still not been able to recover that, because whilst we hoped we were trying to recover, then we're hit by the third phase of the COVID around April, May, and had to lose also more teaching time. Therefore, our learning losses would have been more significantly in poorer communities where children have less access to adequate remote learning opportunities and adequate support in their homes and in their communities. But we also discovered that the impact on early learning for children also attending ECD centers is also very high. It's significant because, again, in terms of our attendance monitoring, it's where there was evidence from the National Income Dynamic Study, which also looked at the impact of COVID in our country. And it reveals that more school-age children were also not attending school regularly. And we are still not sure that does it mean it's a permanent absence from school, so we can count it as dropout, or it's really kids not coming to school during the COVID-19 pandemic phase, and they will return back to school. But we also know that in education, that long staying at home discourages children to come back. So if they stay too long away from school, the likelihood that they will not return. And that's one area we're monitoring also, to monitor what are the dropout rates around COVID-19. Which would mean that they are dropping out of school. But in the long run, the learning losses in primary school, we believe that may increase the dropout rates in our children, especially the older ones from the teenage age around FET, which is your grade 10 to 12, and that might even become permanent. Although the only information we have, Chair, is around learning areas from the assessments that we did.
Sorry, Minister, we can't hear you. We've lost sound.
Of our assessment is addressing the crisis of learning loss to prevent further disruptions to schooling time and prevent other learning losses, which are, as I say, aggravated by all the protocols that we have to really do around COVID-19. And the second step from assessing is then to introduce measures to help us catch up on time, which we call just a boosting up the system, because we also pick up that there's a slack in the system, even in schools that we have requested them to allow all children to return back, but the momentum has been lost, so we have to reboot the system. Whilst rebooting, we have to make sure that we build back better using our experiences from the COVID-19 pandemic, but still continue to implement our targets as a country of ensuring that, as we had planned in this administration, our children, by the time they reach the grade of the age of 10, they can read with meaning. So we do believe that we have to make sure that we rebuild, just say it's reboot. We have to innovate and to refocus our plans if we are to make up, even for lost time, let alone building better. Our country, as I say, has its own challenges. But amongst other things that we've really focused on as government was to make sure that we vaccinate all our staffs in schools, at least to overcome the crises that we have of ongoing infections amongst our teachers, and worse still, the death rates that we're experiencing. By March last year, within a year, by March this year, we estimated that we would have lost about 3,000 teachers from coronavirus, which is a big number in terms of the experience, the age, and just basically the human factor and the pain that was coming in our schools. So the first step that we did, as I say, we have vaccinated all our educators in our schools, we've vaccinated our staff, and the vaccination rates, by the time we did our count, were more than 90%, and we're continuing to have teachers coming in to make sure that they give us 100% that we're looking for. As I say, this COVID-19 induced closures have made us to even strengthen our interventions and have more consultations, because we need to talk more and engage more with parents, with our teachers, with our communities, because again, there was lots of anxiety which was there. We have upped our communication programs, our collaboration with partners, but have also refreshed or looked back at our curriculum and said, what are the areas that we can avoid? And what are the areas which are building blocks which we have to teach despite all the difficulties facing us? As I said, we have had to have lots of consultations with our teachers and our parents and work out or rework our curriculum, but also rework the space and where we work. So briefly, Chair, let me just tell you about the challenges, because we wanted to know what were the challenges that confronted us and which continue to confront us as a country. One is loss of teaching time due to the closures and rotational timetable. There are children who come weekly, so which means in a month, they only come in 2 weeks. In some areas that they are platooning, they come for less hours. Instead of having 6 hours, they come 4 hours and 4 hours each. In other areas, they alternate, and sometimes, which means they will come for 3 days in a week, sometimes 2 days in a week. And that has been extremely disruptive because teachers report that they come back having forgotten, they lose the momentum, and just the speed of just being able to be in school for 5 days and have comprehensive work, we have lost that seriously. We also had cases of positive cases. Even now, with now the current Delta virus infecting learners, we find ourselves having to close schools. We find ourselves having to really send children home. So the disruptions have not ended, because whilst our teachers have been fully vaccinated, we are beginning to see infections amongst younger people, and that itself has become very disruptive. As I said, because of the virus, we also had non-attendance of teachers in 2020. We had to give teachers with comorbidities time to work from home, and that didn't work very well for us, because teaching being a contact job, it was quite difficult to even have our teachers being effective from home. As I say, we had to frequently close our schools, which were very disruptive. We had also challenges that really came face on, like access to water. We had to tank water, and problems that I think we're overlooking in the past or were able to really navigate around came to confront us head on, that as much as we have bottled water in schools for children to drink, but we found that we had to get more supplies of water for hand washing, for sanitation, for all sorts of needs that we had not planned for. The other big problem that hit us was the lack of devices and access to online learning. There was poor connectivity in most communities, particularly in rural and poor areas, townships and farming communities. And we found that we had increased needs for psychological and mental health services, which were even much more serious. So as a result, we had to look at what would be the mitigating factors that we have to use to make sure that educational facilities, which are not only educational facilities, but are also health centers, there are school nutrition programs, but there are also psychological problems. We had to make sure that during the process of the COVID, we continue to feed. We continue with our health programs like the vaccinations that we have, and also any other health programs that health department ran with us, but also had to, like deworming program, which were run through school programs. We had to continue them even in that midst of that interruption. So what is it that we did then in the midst of all these difficulties that were confronting us? First, I did indicate that we had to adjust our curriculum and make sure that at least we focus on skills more than learning areas, which was maybe a positive change. That for a change again, we had to look at our curriculum and say what can be kept, what can be taken to the next class, but what can be avoided to make sure that we don't lose the building blocks. We had to do a recovery annual teaching plans. We had to change our plans and have a 3-year recovery program, and we keep on changing it because we would have anticipated that 2020 would have been much more stable, but it's clear until now, until July, we've never had any stability in the sector. We had to really look at recovery plans, which were school-based, but more than anything, we conducted more baseline information and planning so that we're informed by information and we're targeted because we couldn't risk making mistakes or we didn't have time to make mistakes. But we have to, we had to work with our teachers around the pedagogy of teaching in a different environment. Most of our teachers would not have had an opportunity to teach with ICTs, and now they have to find themselves teaching with ICTs. They've had to teach children that don't come to school every day, who forget what has been done, who sometimes don't have enough support at school to do the homework, and how do they deal with it. In some instances, because of underlying challenges with children who couldn't come to school, they had to do hybrid teaching. Some were in the classroom, some were on ICTs. And again, that created lots of difficulties and anxieties for teachers. And we had to look at all those programs. And amongst others, ourselves had to develop new tools, which we had not had before, your apps, your teaching, just getting more for subjects on ICTs, digitizing our information. And it's all things that were in the plans, but we found ourselves confronted with the challenges to make them work. So I am happy that some of the things are in place, but I can't say they've worked. I'm also very excited, Chair, that we have this discussion with the Rotary Club around what assistance we can have, or what partnership we can have with yourselves. And I must admit from the word go that yes, Rotary is our standing friend. It has helped us in the past. They've provided books for us, for our libraries. We've collected books. So they have always been very helpful in many respects to our different schools. And indeed, it will not be a new relationship or new support that we'll be getting from yourselves. We've devised quite a number of programs, our early reading grade program, through which we assess what are the reading gaps, learner by learner, school by school, so that we're able to have informed interventions. We have launched what we call the reading campaign, which we have worked out with communities to make sure that we get support from communities, because as things stand now, as schools were not able to hold the system on our own, we're reliant also on lots of support from outside. And hence we're also excited when the president announced that they'll be giving us teacher assistants to assist us. But unfortunately, these are young people, people have not taught before. We're expecting them to help us to come in a very complex situation to help us with reading when they would not have had skills or would not have been trained as readers. We want them to help us with remedial work. They would not have been trained as remedial workers. We also want them to assist us with psychosocial services. Again, some of them, the majority of them are social workers, but they will not have worked in the space of education. But also in terms of sport, because again, the COVID-19 has brought lots of depression in the system that we have to, when we reboot, we have to make sure that we reboot at all angles, emotionally, psychologically, and educationally, to make sure that our young people are well protected. So, Chair, we have embarked on a number of programs, and as I say, I am very confident that the partnership and the support from the Rotary Club will help us go a long way. We wish that our learners should continue to be provided with minimum reading packs for improving their literacy levels, which is also another big problem that we have. And as I say, in the past, the Rotary Club has helped us with resource materials for libraries, and that will be another big area that we need to focus on. But we also wish to mobilize civil society, which again, what makes Rotary a very desirable partner, to make sure that through the nook and cranny of our country, people become part of the reading revolution that we want, that we desire for our schools. Again, to mobilize communities to work with reading professionals in different areas to instill the culture of reading, because we believe that if our children can read independently on their own, they'll be able to claw back some of the lost learning that would have happened in school and on their own can develop on their own. We want to really socialize our learners into becoming lifelong readers. And again, we think that's what also the coronavirus environment is giving us as an opportunity to refocus on skills that are sustainable, that despite all the challenges that we're facing, our children will be able to defend their education and defend what we'll have. And Chair, I can also say as a country and as a department, we're very excited that there is progress, because Cabinet had taken decision that the basic education sector should begin to administer and run your ECD programs. And we think it will help so that we have a lifelong learning from where we can work with all other departments, your local government, your health, your social development, and education, to begin to stimulate our learners or our children quite early. We can identify any learning barriers quite early. We can find ways of really mitigating or putting mitigating factors against any other learning deficiency in time, so that by the time they have formal learning, we would have dealt with some of the challenges. And that's one area we think we're very excited about. But I think, Chair, for tonight, what I really want to highlight, as I speak to yourselves, as a very enlightened community, and I know that Rotarians are some of our best citizens in our country. I know in South Africa that your Rotarians, I'm sure in other countries, are some of the best citizens that you would have. And amongst others, the things that we're really looking forward in terms of partnership with civil society is to help us to campaign for support, or community support for education, but more than anything, to help skill the very workers. So we would not expect the professionals to come, for instance, in teaching our schools, but they can help with their skills in areas where we need to reskill the people that are supposed to help. As I say, we'll be getting, for instance, your teacher assistants, and we're taking them deliberating now in November, so that we have November, December, and the beginning of January, we have an opportunity to provide them with the necessary tools, which will enable them to help us and assist us effectively. Because as I said, there have been lots of learning areas, and we don't believe that with the current structure of education, we'll be able to get the recovery program. So what are the opportunities that we see in terms of partnership in education? One, it will be ready resources, which, as I say, has been a historical relationship that we have with the Rotary, through your Rotary libraries, your book centers, to make sure that we can continue to resource our schools. And that, as I say, has been a major boost that we've been getting from your clubs, especially the Edenvik, but there's one club I visited and we got lots and lots of books. And I'm aware that also our schools have been making requests to come and collect books. And that can continue to be one of the big opportunity that exists in a partnership. Secondly, is the skilling that we need to work with our people, both our teachers, but also the teams that have been sent to schools to assist us to claw back on the learning losses that we've experienced. But also more important, it's to continue to mobilize our community and our society, that education more than ever before should continue to be a societal issue, so that education is not left on its own. Unfortunately, corporate South Africa, let me really give them the credit, has really helped us in many respects to deal with the problems. They've been amazing. They have provided resources, they've provided expertise. Some have established an organization like the National Education Coordinating Trust under Sizwe Nxasana to mobilize private sector resources, but also to mobilize private sector skills. They've created platforms for us where we communicate with communities without us having to call them into the center. But there are also the bodies that have been running research. The research programs that I'm talking about, we didn't run them as the education department alone. We have our own research initiatives, but most of these research initiatives have been done by academics, have been also done by independent bodies, and they've been very helpful because they're independent and they either confirm what we have or add on what information we have in terms of the learning losses. So in conclusion, as I say, we've had major disruptions that it will be difficult to explain. Every time I go to a school, I hear about a new disruption, about children forgetting, about ill discipline, and kids getting very restless because they're at home for the whole week. They have to come the next week. They have to come, they forget that they've been at school. They forget things that they have been taught. So there's major disruption despite the fact that we ask them to come to school. As I said, but there's lots of depression. There's no sports in our schools, and you can see that it affects children. Parents write every day, they complain about the fact that they can't even go to sport because where we have allowed sports, we don't allow teachers as a way of containing the spread. And parents are complaining to say that children, if they're 11 this year, they won't be 11 next year. They want to be there for their children and support them. So we have to deal also and try and balance issues between what should happen and how we also save lives. So there's just major disruptions, but we do believe that we can, with support, reboot the system. We can, with the knowledge, the skills that are there in our communities, build back better using the experience of COVID-19, roll much more quicker things that we had planned, like your ICTs and all other programs that we had planned long-term. But also more than anything, continue to implement what has been our plans for the year. So Chair, let me stop it at that and not take too much of your time. I must apologize, I joined in later. I've been trying to log in from 6:10, and I think the old me wants a straight button and not assistance. But fortunately, my daughters returned from wherever they'd gone, and they helped me to link up. So it's not really the mistake of the Rotary, it's basically the skills of, I just know that if I go in message, enter and allow, anything else doesn't work. So I'm very sorry that I joined late and delayed the meeting, but thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very, very much, Honourable Minister Matsecha. It's not only you that struggles with the IT. I was also born BC before computers, so I don't press knobs if I'm not allowed to press knobs. Otherwise, I cause chaos. So I would please like to ask our District Governor nominee, Rihanna, for a vote of thanks to the Honourable Minister. District Governor nominee, Rihanna, please. Rihanna, are you there?
Myself. There you go. Now can you hear me? Honourable Minister, I've been a teacher in my previous life for 20 years. So, and some of my actual students are on this meeting, my past students. So I've taught maths for many years, and I understand all the hassles that you have now with not completing the syllabi, because it's really, really, really bad not to just complete the syllabi in subjects like maths, and you have to build the next year on this year. So I take my hat off for you and your department for sorting out the problems. And we as Rotarians are really, really keen to help you wherever we can. So we want to thank you for bringing us the insight in how you work and what you do, and for being with us tonight. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Rihanna, for those kind words. And if the Minister will allow, we just want to show a short presentation on Rotary in action before we close the meeting. So Rotarian Matsepa, can you go with the Rotary in action, please?
Good evening, Minister. This is just a quick clip and a short one. Thank you for your presentation. It was very insightful, with the hope that we as Rotarian will join and have a collaboration with you. So basically, I hope I'm audible and everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. So let me move along. So Basic Education and Literacy Month is the month of September. Basically also coincide with the Department of Education. This whole thing is like a proper synergy in respect to everything. So this is our president's message from Rotary. I'm just going to quickly just give you a quick view of what he is basically saying. Is that in here he's saying, I'm sure that you're having an enriched experience as you serve and you're willing to change lives. One of the ways of doing this is through building communities. I'm not going to say it word for word because I'm also thinking about time, but the key aspect here is that reading and writing is quite essential and critical, as what you've also mentioned, Minister. It's so important that that is the basic skill that we need to give the people out there, the nation, as well as the world, because as you're aware that there's a huge population that is illiterate, and especially kids. You're looking at a population of 762. So furthermore, what we do as Rotary is that Rotaries, what we do as Rotary, we also partner up with teaching adult education literacy, numeracy, and related practices. That's the basic education that we also do that is out there. You see that it's also done in the province of KZN. That's a quick slide about that. The other thing that we do in basic education as well is that we're part of the process of sanitation, which we are aware that there's a lot of schools out there that don't have any water that is running. And that's one of the things that Rotary is also part of, and also educates people out there, children specifically out there. That's the pilot site that we have. Secondly, we also have one of the things that we also trying to emphasize is first basic step of learning and reading is teaching the sounding of words to kids. That's important, as well as adults, if you have to really think about it. That's one of the things that we as Rotary are proud of, that has been done even in Sweden, in Switzerland, sorry, as well as, so it's not only here in South Africa, but globally. This package that was done here, which is Sounds, has also been distributed throughout the world, mainly done by Pretoria East, but is also willing to partner with the various Rotary clubs so that it can also infiltrate throughout the country. Secondly, we have a school called Shalom. This is part of Pretoria West School, which is one of the projects that we partnered with. That is also in this process of basic literacy, whereby we're supplying them with books for literacy. As you're aware of this, the Center of Humanitarian, where that's where we have the books and where we distribute them throughout the country. It's basically one center that we have that actually helps in the distribution of books. Another place as well that we also proud of is the Lotus Garden Primary School. This also, we have introduced science, technology, engineering, art, and maths, but basically preparing the kids for the fourth industrial revolution. We all know that we are moving away from the basic reading structure and moving to fourth industrial revolution, whereby now IT is becoming the thing that we entrenched in. And yes, that's about it. Thank you so much. I tried to run through the whole presentation and just give you a basic light about everything. I hope I'm right. Sorry, my machine got stuck there. Another one is also the reach out to Africa, which is a dictionary project as well, which is also part of the project that we've done, that we are also busy with as Rotary. We commit to support learners through their literacy journey by providing supporting material donation through our Rotary program. That's one of the programs that we also do as Rotary. And as I mentioned as well, the Rotary Humanitarian, that's where we basically have our center where we do the charitable aspect and we distribute throughout South Africa as well as our neighboring countries. What happens is that Rotarians are the ones, people can't just go by themselves, but with a partnership with Rotary in order for them to get the books. Thank you so much. I hope that was informative to everyone, but it was just a quick slide. My details are there. It's Matsepo Africa, that's my surname, and my email address is also there because we are also running this project, which we have decided that, which is quite critical out there, is let's focus on one project that's going to help our communities out there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rotarian Matsepa. The Minister has just let us know that she's prepared to answer a few questions. So as soon as the presentation's gone, we received a couple of queries and a number of questions from various members of Rotary, and Chantel will be managing that when she will be doing giving the question, and the response will come from the Minister. Chantel, can you handle the questions, please? Thank you very much, Rotarian Chantel. Chantel?
Good evening. Thank you, President Maureen. I would like to give this opportunity to anyone who has not asked a question via email to raise their hand. We'll give the opportunity to 2 people. Could you kindly raise your hand, and this is your moment to actually engage the minister and get a direct response from her. I see Isaac Bushumani's hand is up. Could you ask your question, please?
Thank you, Rotarian. My question is simple. We are helping the young ones who do not make it in the mainstream education, who go to special schools. And after going through year 1 to year 4, they sort of reach a cul-de-sac. So we piloted with them so that we can give them the hand skills and try to qualify them as artisans, but without emphasizing a lot of theory, because that's their weak point. Is there a plan from basic education to try to help them, because they are becoming in big numbers these days? That's why we embarked on going there. While we are helping TVET College theoretical graduates, we also try to create an environment for them. Thank you.
Minister, would you like to respond? Unmute.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Chair. Indeed, it is a major problem about what happens to learners who come from our special schools after they've finished what would be the end for the basic education part, even in terms of accessing jobs. Last week, I visited Soweto and had a session with principals of the different special schools in Soweto, and that was the main source of discussion, to say, because they've been doing their tracer studies and find out the majority of their kids, even with the basic skills that they give them in special schools, they are not strong or hard enough to enable them to make a living even after teaching. So they're piloting themselves. So to be nice to link yourself and then with that team that I was working with in Soweto to say, can we pilot a follow-up after we finish our basic education to say, what do we do with them? Because they call it, where are they program? And that program is to really do a tracer study, and from the tracer study, develop new programs, which we then have to work out, as you correctly say, with higher education, because by the time they leave N4, it's no longer our responsibility. But our view is that even if it's not our responsibility, it's a waste of our efforts if after they've left us, they're not able to pursue a meaningful life. And that's where we take it to say, yes, it may not be our responsibility, but it is our business, because it wastes our efforts if they really don't end very far in life. So I will appreciate, or what I'll do, I'll follow up, Chair, with Mr. Bushumani and see how we strengthen that program. But the long and short is we don't have a comprehensive program after they've left our school. And we recognize it as a major problem.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Minister. I have one question from Tebogo Luate. He is from Pretoria East Club. His question is, how can we build partnerships with parents and educators to ensure greater learner participation in the school programs and remote digital learning programs? These programs present an opportunity to begin addressing the inherent inequalities in the education system.
Chair, again, and I'm glad I saw from the charts that somebody who worked with the NECT program, was the NECT, it's one of our biggest partners to help us coordinate work in communities and societies and interact with very tightly, because what my experience has been that if you work with different groups of people in different schools, I mean, there are more than 26,000 schools. So it's difficult to engage with different programs in different schools in a very sustainable manner. But through the NECT, they are able to help us coordinate work that we need to interface with as government. So my response, Chair, will be that I will encourage that people who want to work with us as government go, not necessarily go because they come as independent NGOs, ensure that they coordinate with the NEC team, because it really has given us a very meaningful interface so that we don't have to be dealing with individual interventions, but we get them sorted out, organized, and coordinated programs. And that can refer you through NCT to specific areas you want to work in and provide the necessary linkages and support. As I say, I'm glad I saw somebody who's dealing on the digital program with NCT through Osametric, and it's those kinds of programs which really help us to interface much more meaningfully with communities.
The next question is from, I see Chantal Ramatsui, that is my clone. Please, you are welcome to ask the minister your question. Okay, we seem to have lost her. Shirley, I think you may ask the minister your question.
Good evening, Minister. It's wonderful to see you again.
Thank you, thank you.
Minister, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Shirley. Thank you very much. My husband was disturbing me here.
How are you?
I'm very well, thanks.
Good
Thank
to
you
see
very
you.
much. Thank you very much.
Good to see you.
Minister,
I was wanting to share with you the fantastic Rotary project that we've engaged in called the Tutu Desk Laptop. And this was endorsed by Bishop Tutu. And it's a desk that the children can put on their laps where there are no desks in the actual classrooms. And for virtually the cost of $10, which in America is like a cup of coffee and a donut, the child can have a desk for life. And when they leave school, they can pass it on to their siblings. Now, we've been putting quite a number of desks in schools throughout South Africa, and we are raising funds in America, in Europe, and in Southern Africa. And it's been an incredible project, and I would really like to contact your office and make an appointment to come and show you the desk itself. As you know, the Bishop turns 90 in October, and we've been working very closely with his daughter Tandi and the Tutu Foundation. I believe that it would be quite a good solution, and I know that you are involved with many, many organizations that like to always look for something to sponsor or donate to in terms of the Department of Education, and perhaps one or two of them would be, seriously consider this. I know you came to the project in July 2 years ago. It was wonderful to see you then. So yeah, we're still doing a lot of work for the education. Thank you, Minister.
No, thank you very much. I'd love to see that, because as I say, with continuous rotational program, what I was hoping that if we are still not able to bring all the learners in classrooms, we could have certain days where it's just they come for reading and playing. So you can imagine the lab desks would be helpful, that they can sit in the class, do the written work, even if they're not in class, and do reading, and then you collect those desks. I mean, just listening to it sounds very exciting, especially with these social distancing, that we can't have all of them in the classroom. But in some instances, we have the yard. They can go and sit under the grass, take chairs, have the laptops, write, and then connect those those desktops. And it could really, I'd love to do that. So I'll follow up immediately tomorrow to see if we can meet.
That'll be wonderful. I know that the Bishop and Tandi would like each child to keep their desk and take it home. So we're raising enough funds for them to be able to do that, so they can take it home and do their homework on it as well. So they've got ownership as well, which I think will make it a great thing for them. And we can leave a few spare ones, obviously, at each school. Yeah. So we have just managed to raise over $3,000 US in the States since we've embarked on this project. We've raised quite a lot of money in South Africa, and we've got the bishop to choose the first schools, and he's gone to the Eastern Cape, and there are a few others that are in the pipeline. So I look forward to working with your department and with you and your colleagues going forward. And thank you very much for all your support for Rotary. I appreciate it.
No, regret it. Tomorrow is the day for the call.
Good, thank you. I won't regret it, I promise. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got 2 more hands up before I ask a question that has been emailed to me. David Grant, please ask your question.
Thank you very much. In fact, the question that I wanted to ask is the one that I've emailed to you. So if I could just proceed with that. Madam Minister, the Rotary Foundation, which supports a lot of our projects, will contribute to sustainable water, sanitation and hygiene projects in schools. And many of our Rotary clubs have installed school ablution blocks, but the wash field that is supported by Rotary is far wider than this, and it covers everything from provision of clean water to schools, general hygiene, menstrual hygiene, segregated ablutions, hygiene education through learner programs and school clubs, sewage disposal, and water pollution, including littering that ultimately contaminates watersheds. The Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Rotary Action Group has international experience with persons who have gained this experience from projects in India, Haiti, South America, West and East Africa. And these specialists are very eager to share their experience and guidance with Rotary clubs around the world. Rotarians here who are aligned with the WASH RAG wish to encourage clubs to undertake WASH projects and are keen to enlist the guidance of the international WASH RAG specialists. Would the Ministry of Basic Education and its departments support Rotary WASH projects in schools? And what is the correct protocol that a club should follow to propose one?
I'm really extremely excited. You know, every Friday morning, 7 o'clock, I meet with my infrastructure team to monitor the progress that we do around infrastructure, but in particular, water and sanitation. Because as I said in my input, what COVID-19 really exposed us quite sadly to issues of hygiene, of water supply and sanitation. And ever since, we've been monitoring that every Friday that I meet with them and just check what we'll be doing. I've requested my deputy minister to take responsibility for making sure that, yes, indeed, from the resources of government, we implement as much as we can, and also where we can get support, we get assistance, we can direct whoever wants to assist us to the areas which we will need attention to. So I am going to ask my deputy minister, because we meet every Friday morning, it's Tuesday, I'm going to ask her that by Friday, I need a report in our 7 o'clock meeting of what has been the discussions and how we're going to proceed. So the deputy minister, Regina Mhaulen, should phone you tomorrow if you're available and pursue the matter so that on Friday morning at 7 o'clock, she can report to us what has been the discussions and how we're going to proceed. There is no doubt that we need help. The expertise in the country sometimes have been alarming and quite dangerous also. In some instances, out of the rush of COVID-19, we provided water tankers. And if, for instance, just a stand is not solid, it's very dangerous because we have 250,000 liters of water pumped into a tank. If it could fall on a child, it could just be fatal. So there have been lots of difficulties also in doing that. In some instances, we would have removed I mean, that Eastern Cape case where the child died in the pit latrine. And it's not as if, it was not as if there were no new toilets. The school had built new toilets, but they had not demolished the old ones. So the child was likely killed wherever she was killed and dumped into that pit latrine, which those pit latrines which were not used. So we even are getting into training committees as to how to to retire pit latrines, collect stones. This is just even the expert, the skills of to say, how do you really retire a pit latrine in a safe manner and not leave it unattended, because in itself it becomes also a very dangerous site. So we have major challenges in that area, and there is no way we will not be able to benefit from any partnership. And as you say, that it's people who've got experience, we need that as a sector, because I always say, unfortunately, we're a Department of Education, our training is around teaching. Now we find ourselves having to run around monitoring pit latrines of things that we have no expertise in, and partners of people who really come independently, who are not your contractors, is very helpful in terms of guiding us to say, no, this is how it's get done. So if you go and commission, this is what needs to happen. So the Deputy Minister will contact you tomorrow, because on Friday she must give us progress report as to, as I say, we meet every Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Who should I give my contact details to, Madam Minister?
I was going to ask from your office, but the office can give you, I was even going to ask for Shelley to give me her contacts, because I have to phone her tomorrow, but I can say it on the phone so that I link you with or I can take them so the Deputy Minister phones, or you can post it here, so that I can write it quickly so that we don't delay the meeting.
Shall I post it on the chat?
Please, on the chat, then I'll take it right away.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Madam Minister.
Thank you very much.
We're going to take one more question from Dulene. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly before I read out the last question that has been sent through to me on email. And just for noting, I have put in an email where you can all send through your questions that we will submit through to the Minister, to the Office of the Minister after today. Dulene, please pose your question to the Minister.
Good evening, everyone. I'm actually Mpile Rashobe, but yes, we signed in with my president's email, so it appears as Dolene, as with other members from the Pretoria East Club. Good evening, Honorable Minister. It's my pleasure to ask this question. So I did notice that you mentioned depression and anxiety and emotional psychological problems. And as a psychosocial support worker, I'm interested in knowing, are there perhaps any government campaigns that are directing this issue, especially for educators more so? I mean, even the students, it's as important, but I think the students feed off from the educators, and they also really need attention as well. And I'm quite well aware that we unfortunately don't have enough funds in that psychosocial department in general. But are there any potential campaigns that are attempting to combat that issue? And it is, as the mental health aspect of our lives really impacts all other issues that we do in life. So I think it's an important issue to address.
No, it is quite critical, to be honest, to really support educators and make sure, because they really set up the temperature of the school, or really the culture in the school. What we were forced to do, which worked very well with us, because of the challenges of COVID-19, we had to strengthen our working relationships with our teacher unions, because they are the ones who also helped us in terms of curriculum trimming, because they will understand, and because we wanted them to be school-based, but also to work with their members and help us support their members. So we built a stronger collaboration for the first time with teacher unions to support educators, because there was lots of grieving and they were very anxious, and we were forced to get closer to them and say, what do you have in your structures as teacher unions, all 5 of them, and share resources amongst yourself to see how we can support your members. But in the meantime, we have in districts what we call your psychosocial services. But we find that teachers are much more, I think, comfortable with their peers. They're more comfortable in their organizations. If it's services that come through their organizations, they're more receptive towards it. But again, through the NCT, again, where they are all represented, independent of the employer, because I'm sure sometimes, I mean, COVID had also brought lots of tensions between the employer and the teachers. They sometimes felt that we were insensitive to their plight. We were very reckless and risking their lives. And they would say the minister is working remote. She wants us to be in the classroom and to face. So lots of challenges came through this. So we had to again strengthen our work through the NECT. They work with a number of professional organizations, but more important, our approach was to strengthen the work that happens in teacher organizations where we thought they were more comfortable to really take their problems to, rather than really get to work with us. But it's an area of major focus because those anxieties are still there. The losses are still felt. As I say, our count by March, we had lost almost 3,000 teachers. And it really created a very sour taste because the teachers sometimes felt that we were very neglectful and put their lives at risk.
Okay, thank you so much. I will check out also the NECT. Thank you, Ms. Deboho. So on behalf of Pretoria East and potentially other clubs, I was wondering if it's possible to, because I am expected to run a project on mental health in these COVID times, especially because it's still to be a reality for us for quite a number of years to come, if it's possible to bridge a gap in contact with you. Is that possible? And the contact, would it be rotarianschantal@gmail.com or?
If you don't mind, I would prefer to have it through the club so that we can be able, I think it's much more easier. As I say, I will contact David directly tomorrow because at least I know where to refer him. And also to speak to Dawso, and I mean, we've worked together this desk. I'll contact her personally. But maybe if the other future communication get through the club so that we can process, we can follow up, and then because
Makes
so
sense.
we try to work through the club.
Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, I have one last question, which is from Moira Gundu, sent to me via email, and it reads as follows. Our system is still divided between government and independent schools, even in response to COVID and opening, and I'm thinking that she's referring to school openings. This seems to widen the gaps between our learners, and this extends to social and economic dimensions. Is there a way that these parallel systems could be in sync and level the playing field for everyone?
You know, the divisions are not even, I think it's even minor that because your private schools don't make more than 5% of the sector. The public sector is almost 96% of our schooling. So it's still big. So the differences that would have come from private to public are not as serious as those in the public itself, where you have your schools in affluent areas, which sometimes even do much better and are much highly resourced, even beyond private schools. So our major challenge really, not even our challenge, because my philosophy is that you don't gain because somebody else loses. So if those schools that are well-resourced continue to perform well, it's -1 problem for us. Our biggest task is to resource and lift those that are really struggling behind by resourcing, because even if you look at our funding model, when we give, for instance, a township school 2,000 rands, we give Parktown boys 125. So most of the resourcing is going to your poor schools, all the facilities, any other improvement. When you talk about ICTs, because we know the schools can look after themselves. That's why I say as much, whilst they're doing well, for me, it's not a problem because it's a plus for us that there is that section that is doing well. Our responsibility as government is to lift those that are not doing well, to be able to be at that part, at that start. So it's not really about others doing well, others not doing well, but it's how successful are we in lifting those schools that are not doing well. And we are making lots of progress. If we look, for instance, at our matric results as indicators, they are beginning to show that we are closing the gap in terms of performance between your affluent communities and affluent schools. What we are not able to do, and I don't think we'll be able to do now in our lifetime, is to abandon the majority of our schools. More than 80% is in townships. So if there is no way we can be able overnight to convert those resources in township schools to the resources which are in your affluent areas. But what we can do is to find measures of compensating for those deficiencies in those schools. I mean, there are schools in farming areas which beat, even in terms of results. If you go to Mbidwi, the results outstrip even results of very affluent schools. But the point I'm trying to make, Reggie, my point of reference, which I always say, it's not about the other schools that are doing well. It's about how we leave the other schools to close the gap without necessarily saying subtracting from the other side will make the system better, whereas what will make the system better is to invest more in the areas which are deficient. And if you look at all our programs, our plans, if we supply material, it goes to your less privileged school. When we go ICTs, we start there. And I'm glad that somebody spoke about special schools. I had said to even the system that the most under-resourced area is your special schools. And if we can do right there, we'll do right for everybody. So we're even starting from the West. We're starting with with your special schools because we've not been able to provide proper services to them. The next level is to go to your, what we call your classes where you have more than one grade, your small schools in farming areas. We've not been doing well. Our focus is there. Your township schools, which really have lots of lack resources, all our infrastructure plans are focusing there. And that's how we hope to really bridge or compensate for the divide that we have inherited, which we will not be able to close over time in terms of infrastructure, but we can make up for them by providing very good teaching, quality teaching, taking all the resources we have in that area. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for allowing us this opportunity to ask you these questions. I'm going to hand over to our club president, Maureen Taylor, to continue the program.
Maureen is
muted, President.
Honourable Minister, I pressed the wrong knob again. That's why I don't work in this field. Honourable Minister, I'd just like to thank you very, very much for allowing us all these questions and all this extra time. It has been so rewarding and so fruitful for us as Rotarians to see where we can actually contribute. Because for us, it's difficult. We see a lot. Now we can actually focus where we can actually contribute. Thank you so, so much for your time. And before we close, I would just like to ask past President Nong, who will give us the four-way test, which is the moral code for personal and business relations amongst Rotarians. Thank you, everybody, for attending. I really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you, Minister, again, and to all your team and to my team for making this happen. I really appreciate everything. Rotarian Nong.
Thank you, President. Honorable Minister, fellow Rotarians and Rotary friends, good evening. My duty is easy this evening is to give you the test that is in 4 parts that every Rotarian, 1.2 million of us worldwide, in everything we think, say, and do, have to be conscious of. And since it's Heritage Month, I will recite it in my mother tongue, of which ka segagesho e tlhoka dikarabo tse. Ya mathomo, a ke nnete na? Ya bobedi, a e tla tshwara yo mongwe le yo mongwe yo a amegago ka tsela ya maleba. Ya boraro, a na e tla aga phedišano ye botse ya segwera ya mmakgonthe. Ya bone, a na e tla hola batho ka moka bao ba amegago. That is our four-way test. And thank you for being with me this evening. I thought, Minister, let me show you the shirt I'm wearing, that I'm living by the four-way test. And I think this is a literacy for life golf shirt, of which we decided to hold hands this year. That was started by Advocate Maru Maremakolo, and he was running comrades and just reading a book just to encourage what you encouraged at this evening. And Rotary Pretoria West have decided to partner with Literacy for Life, for life, to take literacy across South Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Minister. May you have a good night further. Thank you, all the Rotarians. Thank you for attending. And I'm so pleased we could all join in on such a fruitful occasion. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, President. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Minister, and good night.
Thank you.
Nice
Good night,
everybody. Thank you, fellow Rotarians.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye, good night.
Thank you, Minister.
Bye. Good.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well done, Chantal.
Well done.
Well done, everybody.
Well done, Matsepo. Well
Hi,
done,
Governor.
President
Hi,
Maureen.
President.
Rotary
Well
Club of
done.
Pretoria
I
West,
wanted-
you nailed it. You did
You
it.
You did extremely well. This was
Yes.
brilliant. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Rihanna.
It was
It was
really
our
good.
pleasure. Wonderful,
really
wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Hope, for still being with us. And
Bye-bye.
please pass on.
Hope is still, the Hope is a darling. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hope, for all your hard work. Thank
Good
you.
night, Geraldine. Nice of you to join. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.